So that's certainly great, but let's say we want to style this if we hover over it. And if we, well, go away with our mouse, hover out, then we want to, well, to let the green background disappear, to make it white again, basically. Well, to do this, I'll change a couple of things here. First, I'll comment out this default green style, and I'll even get rid of all the injections here. Instead, what I'll do is I'll add a new element here, a new property, which I will call mouse in or mouse over. And I will add metadata to that. The metadata I do want to add is the host listener metadata. And that is not the import I need. I will import that from the Angular core package. Now, host listener allows me to define an event on the hosting element, the element hosting this directive, which will then trigger a method specified here. So the event I want to listen to is mouse enter. And upon entering this, I want to do something. But what do I want to do? I want to change the color. So I will first set up a private property named background color, which I will set to white by default. And I will change this background color once the mouse hovers over the hosting element. So that is one thing. However, we won't see that because we're changing the color, but we're not styling it anywhere. So in order to do this, I'll introduce something else, a host binding, which I will first also import from Angular core. And then I use it the very same way, metadata. And then I will have a getter, and this is a TypeScript concept where you may have getters and setters for your properties. And by adding get in front of the property name, I'm basically making this property read only and specify some logic about the value this property should have, because it's read only, right? I have to specify a function or something defining which value this property actually will have. So I will name this setColor. And here I will simply return the value which this property will have in the end. So it's not a function, it's more like a property. This is the get function for a property named setColor in the background, to put it that way. So this will return simply the background color. Now, why am I doing all of that? Well, with this I can pass an argument to the host binding here in single quotation marks or in quotation marks in general. I will add style.backgroundColor, which looks like the binding I showed you before with a replacement for ng-class and ng-style, this class dot or style dot notation. This is the same, and this basically says bind the value of this variable of setColor, the value of course is background color in the end, to a certain host attribute, an attribute on the hosting element. The attribute I want to bind to is the style attribute, and there I want to bind the background color style. This is what I'm doing here. So if I save this and this reloads, and I hover over it, you saw it got green. So I'll reload again, it's not green, and it gets green. It doesn't change if I mouse out though. Therefore, I'll copy my host listener here, and I will change the event I'm listening to mouse leave. Name this mouse leave. And here I will reset it to white. So now if this reloads, you see that it now only changes if I hover over it. So that's a different way. Of course, we could have done the same without the host binding here, and instead simply using the renderer, if we inject that here, and the element reference, and then basically do the rendering here instead of setting this background color, which we then return with the host binding. I just wanted to show you both ways. You can either inject the element on which this directive sets and manipulate it through the renderer. And for some scenarios, you might only have that possibility. But oftentimes you can also use host listeners and host bindings to listen to events and change attributes on your elements.